Okay, in this video we're going to try to wrap things up. Last time we added the share URL, but we couldn't actually share it. So we want to add the share URL, or the ability to share, and then the ability to sign. So we got our resources here. We're going to go ahead and add our update action to our shares route. Then we need to create two fields in our database. One is for the signature. It's going to be a base64 image string, and then we're going to collect a signer's name. So the signature and signer name. Okay, so let's create our controller, our shares controller. Go ahead and create the show action, and we're going to find that contract by the share URL or share token, which is being passed through as the ID for the show action. Remember, this one is not this controller is not protected, where our protection is from the very unique share token. So now we're going to add a view, a set of files for our single file view component. So this is the show view. This is just the HTML that imports in those packs, and then this is our single file template. Let's put a test in here to see, just make sure everything's linked up and working. So now if we open this, we'll go, let's go incognito, so that we can show that we don't have to be signed in. Okay, so anytime you add a view or something to Webpack, you gotta restart that dev server for it to pick up. Okay, so there's our test. So it looks like everything's linked up correctly. So for this single file component, the show component, we're basically just going to copy our other component and then eliminate a lot of the stuff we don't need. So we're going to get rid of that form. We don't need the name. So we're going to keep our render contract component. And we'll get rid of some of these custom methods. We don't need to add a refield. We'll keep the save contract. It's going to be the same functionality to just save those fields. Let's see. And now we need to copy our JSON over to our shares controller. And we could reuse these. I mean, typically you try to reuse and not duplicate content, except for, since this is only for shares, we don't really want to expose all of the other information about the contract. There might be could be some private information in there, or you know, the ID of the contract. We don't want to expose, or actually we do have to keep that. Now I suppose we could just eliminate it. And we'll get this in the right folder, set this up to the right partial. We're going to eliminate those fields. Now we need to add our two new fields, signature and signer name. Okay, cool. So everything's hooked up and working correctly. We're getting our render contract. Let's go ahead and just make this full screen. Okay, so now we want to, down at the bottom of the dotted line, we want to add a place for the signer to fill in their name. So we'll just add an input field, connect that with vModel contract.signer name. And then we need a button to save it. And we'll just hook this to that save contract method. More formatting. See what this looks like. Okay, so there's our field. And now we just need a method to receive our update. And we're basically just going to copy this from our contract controller. So remember we created this controller with a scaffold. We're just going to eliminate we should never need the HTML. We're just going to use the JSON. So we'll only render that. Okay. And then we need contract params. And for this controller, we'll only whitelist the 2 parameters, of course. So that kind of protects it from being updated, other attributes being updated. And we'll just whitelist the signature and signer name. Oh, got that backwards. It's require, then permit. Okay. Let's see if that works. We'll go and gotta find it first. Okay, now we're ready to save. Looks like it worked. We refreshed. It's still there, so I think everything's working. Cool. So now we're going to use this JavaScript library called SignaturePad, and it's pretty cool because it already has a place where we can add it with Yarn. So we're just going to add that to our project. And then we're going to create a new component for this signature, since it contains some logic that we don't want to use in our shares component. So we just copied that component. Now we're going to overwrite with the things we need. So this needs a canvas to write on. So we're just going to create a canvas, and we're going to get rid of all this stuff. We won't be needing it. Then we are going to have one data attribute. It's called signature. And that's where we're going to store this object that we create from the library. So we're going to remove this stuff. Okay, and when we mount it, that's when we're going to go ahead and initialize the library. So we're just going to copy this, and then here we're going to assign it to our view data. And then we just need to import this library in. Since we added it with Yarn, we can just import it in here. And then we want to tie, or we want to put our component in. It's called signature component. And we're going to tie this to our vModel contract.signature. And now when we sign this thing, we're clicking the canvas, and so we can tie into a click update on the canvas, and that's when we want to emit the value of our signature to our contract signature data. So on update, we're going to emit input, and so by giving the signature component a v-model, it's going to automatically be set to receive this input. And so then we're just going to say dis.signature to data URL. So that's a method that's built into that library that renders our signature to a base64 image URL. And we're going to just add an image, tie it into the contract signature, or bind the SRC to contract signature, just to make sure we're getting it correctly. Okay. So I don't see a signature. Let's see if we got any errors. Okay, several errors. Property method signature is not defined on the instance. Okay, so let's see what we missed. Well, we know we got to render in that component, but that's not the error. We got to import in the component. And then let's register it. Oh, got 2 periods. That's from when I copied and pasted in. Okay, I'm still getting that same error. Signature is working. Let's go ahead and let's put a border around this canvas so it shows up a little bit easier. Yeah, that's better. Still getting that signature not defined. Let's go find where signature is referenced. There it is. It's supposed to be contract.signature, not signature. So now we're not getting any errors on this page, and then after we click and update, we get our image, so we know that data property is being emitted up and saved. So now we can delete the image, and let's so after we sign the contract, we don't really want to leave it open anymore. So let's say if the contract signed, and we'll just say it's been signed by, and list the name. And if not, then we'll render the contract and the fields to sign it. Okay, so let's go ahead and sign this and save it. Oh, so I expected all this to go away. Oh, that's probably because we didn't add the contract is signed property. So we need to add that to our JSON, but we also need to define that attribute on our contract model. And so basically we'll say that a contract is signed if there's a signer name and a signature. So yeah, signature.present and signer name.present. So let's refresh. Yep, it caught it, so now it's not displaying it. Now on our contract show, once the contract's been signed, we want to show the user, or our main user who wrote the contract, we want to show that it's been signed. So we'll put a similar piece of code here where we're looking to see if the contract is signed. And if it is, we'll say who it's signed by, and then output the signature in an image. Okay, we'll bind src to contract.signature. And then let's wrap this in a template v-if contract is signed. Okay, we just need to add those attributes to our JSON. Is signed, and we also need our signer name and signature. Okay, so there it is. Our contract is showing who it's signed by and displays their signature here. Okay, I think that about wraps things up. I hope you enjoyed the making of an MVP. I know it was quick and rough, but hopefully you learned a few things. I learned a few things, especially about using Webpack and Vue, and so it was a really good experience for me.